none of it's functioning because none of us are getting the magnesium we need to deal with the levels of stress. Look, we're giving people yeast with our antibiotics, with cortisone, with the birth control pill. I think we did well, but then the pharmaceutical companies got involved, and they said, oh, we can make a similar chemical structure with coal tar. They say that they see fungal species around cancer and tumors as the fungus is trying to chew up the tumor.
Wow.
Say
What?
around the time that they accepted direct-to-consumer drug advertising, I was gone.
The information shared on the Rethink It podcast is intended for educational and informational purposes only and should not be taken as medical advice. While Dr. Sande is a licensed medical provider, the content of this podcast is not a substitute for professional medical diagnosis, treatment, or advice specific to your individual health needs. Always consult with your healthcare provider before making any decisions related to your health or medical care.
Welcome back to the Rethink It podcast. I'm so glad you guys took the time to join me back here again to rethink everything there is to think about what you know about your health, particularly as it relates to brain health and how we prevent dementia in this modern world. Today, I have the tremendous privilege of interviewing one of the giants whose shoulders I stand upon, Dr. Carolyn Dean. She is one of the pioneers in this space. To give you an idea, Carolyn Dean, she is an MD who graduated in the year that I was born. So she has been doing this a very long time. And yes, she was an MD. She went to medical school in a time when there was, where she was living in Canada, no naturopathic school tracked. So medical school was what she did, but she dove straight into natural medicine directly afterwards and has been in that field since that time. In fact, in the 1990s, she was involved in research with HIV patients when we had, very little to offer them. And we do have a little bit of fun talking about that time and how that ended up giving her insight into the magnesium deficiency problem that plagues all of us today. In fact, she is probably the primary researcher and the reason you hear all the reels today about magnesium and all the things that magnesium impacts and, that you need to be taking your magnesium supplements, probably because of the work that she did. She wrote a book about magnesium and the missing link, and you can find that information in the show notes when we upload her information there. So I encourage you to pick that book up. She has put it in a revised version where it is now down to 200 pages from the original 600. So very easy to consume and definitely something you wouldn't want to miss if you love to dig into the details. But today our conversation has been just thoroughly enjoyable for me. We've covered the gamut. We really dig into how and why magnesium impacts us and why everybody needs so much magnesium today. If you're not taking magnesium, believe me, you're way behind the 8 ball here. And you'll see why after this podcast. So I hope that you enjoy it as much as I do. Without further ado, let's dive in. All right. Well, welcome to the podcast, Carol Dean. Do you go by Carolyn or Carol?
Carolyn, I want all those letters.
You like all your letters. I know. I appreciate that. Well, welcome to the Rethink It podcast, Carolyn Dean. I appreciate that you came on today. You have such a wealth of information. You have written how many books is it?
I don't know. It's anywhere between 50 and 100.
Between 50 and 100 books. So we have an author in the holistic space who's been doing this since 1970s. And so we have so much information we can cover. We could just pick your brain all day, but we're going to focus on some things that are near and dear to the brain today. So I'm very excited to have you on. Would you do us the great privilege of just giving us the background to your life story and how you got here and how you wrote 50 to 100 books in the functional health space?
Okay. In the 60s, when everybody else was, I guess, being a hippie, I was being a health nut and reading all the available books, which weren't that many. Adele Davis, Jonathan Wright, Pavo Arola, those were the three big ones. And my then boyfriend and now husband of like 55 years, we ended up in LA, and I attended health conferences with those very people. Dale
Wow.
Alexander. It was amazing. So I put my finger or toes in the water early on.
Yeah.
And with what I knew and my penchant for lifestyle, nutrition, health, I was making my own bread. Adele Davis, and then I find out she's a smoker, and I think she died of some smoking cancer. It's very sad.
That is
So
sad.
we get back home to Nova Scotia, and nobody would listen to me about, oh, you should do this, you should do that. And I was in honors biology, genetics, and I joked that I was looking for the stupidity gene, and we would just snip it out. But then a couple of young guys, so I was in my mid-20s at this point, a couple of young guys, probably 19, 20, they said one day in biology class, "Oh, did you get your acceptance?" And I said, "I feel pretty accepted." It turns out these two young punks were going into med school. So I couldn't believe it. So I marched over to the dean of medicine's office, which happened to be at this university, Dalhousie University in Nova Scotia. And who was in the assistant dean's seat but my former guidance counselor, Miss Elliott?
Oh, wow.
Miss Elliott, you told me I should be an executive secretary or a nurse. How could you? I think I should be a doctor.
Good for
So,
you.
yeah. So she was on the dean's acceptance, medical acceptance board, whatever it was. So it turns out I had everything on my courses. I had everything but I think physics and inorganic chemistry. So I get accepted into the next semester if I pass these courses. So I went into medicine without even kind of thinking about it. Story for these young kids at age 12, I want to be a doctor, and their whole life is like this tunnel vision. So I went in with all the alternatives in mind, and man, I can do stuff. Actually, it was interesting, Sandy, you'll like this. When I had my interview with the third year medical students, and they were interviewing the prospective new students, and they thought I was a Pollyanna.
Ah!
I thought I could help people, so they
Well,
rejected.
gosh darn it.
She can't help people. We know that by third year.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I'd already been interviewed by the dean of medicine, and we got along really well. Was it the dean? I think it was the dean of students, dean of medical students. He was a psychiatrist, psychologist, and he brought me in. He said, "Oh, they're already cynical." So anyway, I got in, and in my class, there were 100 students, and it was the first year that they
100 students. Wow.
more than a quarter women. They had 33 women.
Wow.
So it was during those times.
Yeah, yeah.
Second day medicine. I mean, this is totally off topic, but you'll love it. Second day of our lectures, a guy comes in, introduces himself. He's a clinician. He throws up his slides. It was a slanted lecture theater. His slide projector was in the back. The slides were nude female slides from Playboy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. This is how he peppered his lecture, and we all sort of sat there, "Oh my gosh, this is crazy." Nobody said anything. We just sort of sat there and listened to this archaic presentation. So what did I do? I went home, I knocked on the door of a professor from the med school he's a biochemistry professor, a wicked sense of humor. I went to the drugstore, got the first Playgirl magazine ripped out the nude male pictures, got him to make slides for me. On the 4th day of lectures, I put all these slides in the same guy. He came back, put the slides in, and he pulled, the first slide with this nude male, and and the second slide, nude male. He grabbed his briefcase, ran out of the lecture theater, and never came back. So this is how I changed med school.
That is so funny.
Every picture, every poster of nude females that apparently littered the whole anatomy labs everywhere. It
Wow.
shut right down.
Yeah,
No
shocking.
crying, no whining, no protesting, just, meet fire with fire. It was awesome.
That is awesome. That is really good. That is a great story. So that starts you off on the medical direction. The medicine is not what you practiced for the last however many years, right? You actually went and jumped right into naturopathic.
Yeah.
The naturopathic world right after medicine, isn't that right?
Yes, after I got my medical degree, after my internship, and I set up my practice, I started taking postgrad naturopathic courses. So I got my naturopathic degree, but because I was always reading, always interested in alternatives, I was able to start my practice doing alternatives. I practice in the same building as a chiropractor. So all the chiropractors in Toronto, Canada, this is where I was for my internship and my practice. All the chiropractors sent their patients to me. I was flooded. I was totally booked up, before 6 months. So
Wow. And this is in the 80s.
Yes, I started my practice in 1979. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And how long were you in practice?
So I was 13 years there, and then I took a year sabbatical, but that was alongside being invited to go to Manhattan and be the medical doctor, clinical director for an AIDS trial. AIDS and chronic fatigue in the early 90s. AIDS was huge. And we were doing homeopathic herbal acupuncture injection into true acupuncture points.
Oh, wow.
Using a magnetic spin. We'd press a button, it would magnetize this remedy, which I would make in the lab.
Oh my gosh.
We would get the Chinese herbs, boil them down, sterilize them, put them through a micropore filter, all in all, and put them in vials. And then
the goal, what were you studying there with that group?
AIDS, HIV, AIDS.
What was the endpoint? That was the goal to improve immune function, or what was the endpoint?
It was basic survival back then.
Okay, yeah, because it was the early 90s, so we were like still shocked at AIDS, and AIDS was killing more people than we were saving.
Before AZT, Sandy, so we were fighting against our friend Fauci, who was railing against alternatives, and he said, "Oh, you can't do that. Wait for our drug; it's coming out." I don't know if he had a patent on that one, but many of the people in our study went over to the AIDS trials, and they all died. The AZT back then was so strong; it really knocked people out. But what I learned in sort of the AIDS world, because what we did is we took testing. We did testing for all the viruses, for bacteria, for yeast. We sent people off for live views under the microscope for parasites, tests for parasites. Because if you put a preservative in a bit of stool, you ruin it for finding parasites. So did everything. That sort of really got me interested in yeast overgrowth. Every one of these people had yeast overgrowth.
Oh, yes.
And they had a lot of parasites. And what I started realizing from my own history of yeast, because actually, jumping back to Toronto in 1986, I did a TV show up there with William Crook for Pete's sakes, the inventor of yeast overgrowth. He was a pediatrician, and he realized that, hey, so many of my patients, young patients, older patients, are getting yeast when they are given antibiotics. What's going on? And William Crook and Orion Trust, they both tried to interest the allopathic medical establishment on the fact that, look, we're giving people yeast with our antibiotics, with cortisone, with the birth control pill. We better be careful.
Oh,
And
yeah.
they shunned these people, and they both wrote books for the public. And then they were said, oh, they're just kooks, they're trying to get the public interested. It's just a fad disease. The whole yeast overgrowth condition was suppressed,
Sure.
and if treated at all, it was mistreated with fluoride.
Nystatin.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And the next drugs were fluoride-based drugs, and then what we've talked about already about fluoride is it will bind with the magnesium in your body, create a compound magnesium cellate. No, sorry, magnesium fluoride, which is called cellate. And that will deposit in tendons and joints.
Hmm.
So you get
Anybody heard of being floxed?
flux.
That's a very big thing. I think you could probably find support groups on Facebook
Yeah.
about I was floxed or being floxed,
Mhm.
and that comes back to these floxacin drugs, ciprofloxacin, levaquin, levofloxacin, levaquin. And those people have had similar, like these type of symptoms that you're talking about. The fluoride is the problem. I remember when I don't mean to interrupt, but this is a really interesting point. It brings me to thinking about it, because I remember when it came out when I was still not in the holistic world as much as I am today. And I was trying to understand it because I saw it. I saw people talking about it, and I read the package insert, and every time I went to prescribe Levaquin for something, I was always like, oh, I don't really want to, but this is what they're saying I need to prescribe, because like I don't even understand why this is happening to people. I don't want it to happen to my patient. You know what I mean? And so I didn't understand that. And you just kind of brought all the pieces kind of back together again,
Yeah,
That's really
they
interesting.
never said what is the cause of the floxing, and the drug companies will maintain that their drugs won't break down and release the fluoride, but the microbiome, our intestinal bacteria, that's one of their functions, is to break down chemicals to try to get rid of them. So they'll break down the ciprofloxacin, for example, is a big one. They'll break down these drugs, and the fluoride will be released, but then it will sop up all the magnesium in the body, and then these people are tense and spastic, and they pull their tendons and rupture them, for Pete's
Man,
sake.
that really concerns me, because in anesthesia, we use general anesthetics, have very concentrated fluorides in them. That's part of the mechanism of action of how we suppress consciousness. It is still something we need to do, but it's still not without risk. And then in certain situations, like say, if you have a kidney stone, I know for certain I have many times hung gentamicin and ciprofloxacin at the same time as anesthetizing a patient, because that's what the surgeon requested, because we were dealing some kind of kidney stone or something, and that's what they wanted. And it just makes me mortified to think the amount of fluoride toxicity that's happening in that situation's devastating.
I mean, how do you get around that? I would say put up a magnesium drip as well, but they
Hmm.
do have
We do that in some practices. We'll do that. I do like to do that in
yeah.
a good bit of my certain cases. I will do that. You have to have sort of a system-wide acceptance of kind of that form of practice, because magnesium is, in the form that we have in the hospital, can also be a dysrhythmia and hypotensive, like it will make your blood pressure low. So we don't want to be fighting a blood pressure on a person who's already fighting their blood pressure under anesthesia. So it's a little bit of a nuance there, but it certainly is a a good choice. And there's, of course, this isn't I'm not here to talk about but that's part of what I'm writing about in my book, is the preparation for anesthesia and the recovery from anesthesia. How do we prepare for that amount of,
Right.
insult to our bodies, and how do we recover from this
Right.
strategically?
Well,
Magnesium is a big piece.
right, and you're also talking a lot in your practice. You talk about the brain and the importance there and
Mm,
aging factors and whatnot. But did you realize that in every brain neuron, of which there are 86 billion,
mm.
there are 2 million mitochondria in each neuron,
Oh, yeah.
which means, well, wait, I should step back. In the Krebs cycle, the Krebs is in your mitochondria. So in whatever millions of Krebs cycles,
Yeah.
there is magnesium as the
Required for every step of it. Every step. Every step.
at the end. I mean, the magnesium researchers are saying that, well, it's ATP-MG. You
It is.
have ATP without MG, but MG, magnesium, has been so shunted aside because there's no good blood test for it. So they ignore it. So, but think of that, Sandy. In your brain, each neuron has 2 million mitochondria. In the heart, which we used to think had the most mitochondria and the most magnesium, 5,000 mitochondria in each heart cell.
Mm,
5,000. So what's going on with dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's,
mm-hmm.
brain diseases?
Oh, yeah.
I say it's a magnesium deficiency. In my magnesium world, I haven't even gotten to my story where when I was in New York doing the AIDS research, I started to do some New York TV. I wrote a little health encyclopedia for a natural health publisher. And then Random House asked me to write a book on magnesium. And I thought, that's crazy. How can I write 300 pages on one mineral? Find out that all my symptoms, and I was very high functioning, I got a lot done, but I still had, headaches and insomnia, and eye twitching, throat kind of clogging, you choke easy,
Mm-hmm.
heart palpitations,
Oh, yeah.
leg cramps, Charlie horse leg cramps that were just horrible. So anyway, I ran out and got some magnesium and immediately got the laxative effect. The problem with modern day nutrients, specifically magnesium. People don't have non-laxative magnesium, so
Mm-hmm.
that your 2 million brain cells or whatever, 2 million mitochondria in your brain cell in your heart, none of it's functioning because none of us are getting the magnesium we need to deal with the levels of stress, the
Mm-hmm.
overworked
Yeah.
land, the
How does
extra.
stress play into that? So,
Sure.
why do we end up with needing more magnesium because we're stressed?
Well, it's kind of in the adrenal glands. The adrenal glands under stress, they're constantly putting out a little extra adrenaline. You
Mm-hmm.
get a shock, you jump, your adrenaline pushes your heart and makes you feel sort of tense.
Mm-hmm.
People will get into panic attacks because they get a shock.
Mm-hmm.
A shock can be even low blood sugar. Your blood sugar can drop, and then your adrenaline comes out to push your blood sugar up to get your liver stores of glycogen. And with that adrenaline rush, you think you're having a panic attack, not a low blood sugar attack.
Mm-hmm.
So
The adrenaline probably ends up causing the metabolic process of the cell to increase, right? So then we
yeah,
end up demanding more of that Krebs cycle. I
yeah,
mean, makes sense
puts
to me.
more
Yeah,
to it,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
the stress on the adrenaline, you need B vitamins, vitamin C, and magnesium
Mm-hmm.
to keep your adrenals healthy and producing adrenaline. So those three, like you say, they are going to be depleted. The more tense, the more reaction. What they're measuring for stress right now is cortisol.
Mm-hmm. I know.
There's so many people have high cortisol levels because of chronic stress. In the whole adrenal cycle, you are using up, again, B vitamins, vitamin C, and magnesium to make the cortisol, to make the adrenaline. All some, the biohackers going on about their cold therapy and their hot saunas and everything. They're actually putting the body under so much stress, thinks that you're killing it. And what happens? It'll throw out some growth hormone or all,
Yeah.
different measures will try to, recover a body that thinks it's dying,
Yeah.
and it's interpreted as, "Oh, isn't this great? This."
Well, I can understand the stress response and the resilience and the heat shock proteins, the things that do happen that are very good because I do love my sauna. But this is a great time to say, if you are doing sauna, that you need to be supporting your minerals. If
You
you are
will
not, you are really hurting yourself.
You're using it all up. I mean, so we get the rejects, the people who've done a hot saunas for a month, and they just come dragging in because their minerals are so depleted. It's obvious to us, and, maybe the young people can do it, but in my age group, in my 70s, I'm
Mhm.
not gonna tell my audience to do cold plunges. I tell people my cold plunges, I'll take my hot shower and walk out into an air-conditioned room. That's plunge. Right.
Yeah, there is definitely a nuance to different age groups and populations. You don't just make a blanket statement about it all. That's
Mhm,
a very good point.
mhm.
But so yeah, so you ended up writing the book, the Magnesium book. Weren't you interviewed somewhere there in the midst of that in New York for your work on magnesium? Was there
I
some
did a
interview there?
lot of TV. I did The View a lot. I was, one of their health experts, but around the time that they accepted direct to consumer drug advertising,
Mm.
I was gone. They didn't want.
Really?
Yes, yes, yes.
When did that happen? I've never
It
thought
was,
about that.
yeah,
W-
like 1997 comes to mind.
Wow.
I
So
would
before that, you didn't see all these ads on TV for
No,
drugs.
no.
Yeah, you don't see them in the other countries, that's for sure.
I mean, the only problem I had on The View was the producer would tell me to tone down the comedy because I was outshining the hosts.
Oh my God.
Yeah, no, that was fun. They asked me to do a segment on hemorrhoids, and so I brought in my props. I took a toilet roll cylinder, covered it in aluminum, and then I got a bunch of grapes, and so I said, "This is hemorrhoids," and I lowered the grapes through the cylinder, and out popped these grapes at the end, and that was your hemorrhoids. It was so funny, I ended up on a show called Duck Soup. Back
Oh.
then, they had this, a roundup of all the silly things that the talk shows were doing. I ended
That's
up
so
on
funny.
but anyway, so I imagine if I were a drug company, I would want a contract that said, "Well, you can't allow Dr. Dean on. Say that you don't need to have antibiotics. You can use silver, or you can nebulize silver," which is what I tell people now, or,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
fact that we need magnesium and vitamin C for the heart, you know,
Yeah.
people aren't taking it.
Mm.
Linus Pauling, he
Yep.
got eulogized for saying that vitamin C could help the common cold, but that was just so silly. He was
Yeah.
working on heart disease.
Yeah. He didn't he get a Nobel Prize for what do you call it? Orthomolecular medicine, the finding of I don't remember what his research, but I thought he got a Nobel Prize
He got
in
2
his field.
he
Uh-huh.
got a Peace Prize, and he got 1 for his work in medicine, but he didn't
Uh-huh.
get it for heart disease because it was all suppressed. The drug companies didn't want you to take vitamin C with it was vitamin C, lysine, and then Matthias Rath added proline. That is a combination that will help prevent and treat atherosclerosis.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
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 That's amazing. Hey guys, I wanted to pop in interrupt our podcast to encourage you guys and let you guys know, if you didn't know, our book is available. Stephen's story about his struggle through Lyme disease, our book, Kids Get Lyme Disease Too, One Boy's Journey of Trusting God Through Lyme Disease. It is available on all areas that you can get books, everything from Amazon to Barnes & Noble to everywhere in between. All the places that you pick up books, you can pick up our book. So please support us and get the word out. If you have a child that's struggling, it doesn't have to be Lyme. I know so many children who just feel weird because their health doesn't match that of their peers, and they feel isolated, they feel unseen, frustrated, and alone. This book is meant to encourage those children. It's meant to encourage you parents that you can get through it. It's meant to make you feel seen and heard and give you hope. So please pick up our book. Thank you so much for supporting our podcast and all the things that we do. You can see it's an ever emerging thing. I'm changing my studio. Today I'm wearing scrubs because this is the only time I've had to record, and I'm doing the best we can. And I appreciate that you guys are here with me at the root level, at the ground floor, as I'm trying to get information out to you guys that is valuable and hopefully life-changing, starting with the book. So pick up the book wherever you can pick up books, and thank you in advance for all your support. Again, there's power in the natural remedies that are just so very much overlooked. And here's the thing I think that is really important to mention: the disease is going up, and why, if we get these minerals and we get these vitamins naturally in our food source, and our food source is changing, then we're naturally going to see disease progress, right?
Right. 100 years ago, the U.S. Department of Agriculture says we were getting 500 milligrams of magnesium in an average diet, and now we're lucky to get 200.
Oh, wow.
I'm so interested in food and can food really heal us? I 100% support a biodynamic organic farm here in Maui, but I can't eat off the farm without getting my heart palpitations back. So I know food isn't the answer, but we have to eat organic food. We have to avoid the seed oils what the seed oils are doing, the omega-6 seed oils, which are your sunflower, safflower, soy, and canola, they are replacing your cell membranes with inferior
fatty acids,
instead of the omega-3 fatty acids, which come from fish or algae. My products are algae-based because if you use the essential fatty acids from fish liver, that liver is so contaminated by the world being contaminated. You can measure any body of water anywhere in the world and find contaminants now. What happens with fish liver, they have to take it to some big facility in Norway or Sweden or something, I forget which, to refine the liver or
clean up all the garbage
and the chemicals.
You
don't even know what's left, what solvents are left in that mess.
Yeah, right. That's so true. There was a book I read that was published by another MD, I would say in the early 2000s. And so this is a little bit old data, and I mentioned it before, but it's just really important to drive home the point of the unavoidableness of toxins in our planet. You said you can't test any body of water and not find some garbage there.
Well, maybe you're referring to my book, Death by Modern Medicine, that I wrote in 2005.
No, it wasn't yours. I would have remembered the name. It was a different physician, and she wrote in the book. She said, if you go to the polarized caps and you drill a mile down, that's the first time you'll find a clean sample of snow. A mile down. So everything before a mile has garbage from the movement of the toxins through the air and the precipitation that's formed and snow, and it takes a mile before you get a clean sample, and the polar ice caps. So we're like, the toxins are truly unavoidable. And there's something that you said too. You were talking about the pesticide, why we eat organic, and the pesticides. And how they, what I thought about when you said is the fact that the pesticides impact your microbiome. And earlier, you made the point of saying how fluoride is removed in a lot of, like in your average, I don't think it's enough when you have an anesthetic, but if there's, in your average exposure to fluoride, the microbiome is involved in detoxifying the fluoride from your body. And so what happens when we wreck our microbiome with food that is meant to kill bugs, so it's killing the bugs in our gut as well. It's bug killer no matter what kind of bug, right? So it's definitely a problem. So you have studied so much on magnesium. Talk to me about all the impacts that it has. I know we've already covered a lot. The man, I can't tell you how many times I've met a Lyme patient. I don't think I've ever met a Lyme patient who hasn't dealt with palpitations. And I would say that is 100%, well, not 100%. I think it has a large portion to do with the amount of magnesium deficiency that they have. Not to mention the effect of the Lyme damages sort of the myelin and the damage to the heart and conduction system. But I think that magnesium deficiency is a big component to the problem.
Right. I remember a Lyme researcher telling me once years ago, and I don't have the reference anymore, that Lyme chews up magnesium. It's like it uses magnesium, so you need more.
Oh,
People
wow.
say, well, if it's chewing up magnesium, why bother taking it? But that's not the point. While you're boosting your immune system, while you're treating yeast overgrowth, because a lot of people will have
Always.
Cancer.
Mm-hmm.
I use antifungal Saccharomyces boulardii and humic fulvic and inulin, and I use a picometer silver, and that's been doing wonders for yeast overgrowth. Because I remember going through my yeast overgrowth because of antibiotics when I was a kid, mercury dental fillings, birth control pill, high sugar
You
diet.
just answered the question I was going to ask. So what causes yeast overgrowth?
And I tried to starve it for 10 years. I didn't touch sugar, wheat, or dairy.
Look at
And
that.
it didn't help
Uh-huh.
until I started to use my magnesium, which is a picometer size stabilized ion of magnesium. And that because magnesium is necessary for 80% of known metabolic functions in your body,
Mm-hmm.
80%.
Wow.
It's not even measured in an electrolyte panel. Doctors ignore it,
Mm-hmm.
vision.
Right.
And we've already talked about it in your mitochondria, in your brain, in your heart. So magnesium is working in concert with calcium. Calcium has to get into cells to create an activity or an action potential in a cell.
Electrical charge.
Muscles and nerves,
Mm-hmm.
both.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to get into the cell, it has to be opened up by magnesium. And it does its little job, and then somehow calcium is pulled out and magnesium shuts down the opening. If there's not enough magnesium, that opening is flabby, and calcium gets in. And the way Dr. Russell Blaylock, a neurosurgeon, says it, he said it excites the cells to death. So
It's
that's
like a
your
hyperactive child bouncing around the room.
Yeah, that's
So
your
it can't.
twitching, your tightness. So
Yeah.
magnesium is working on 640 muscles in the body and 45 miles of nerves. Any one of those muscles, any inch of those nerves, if it's deficient in magnesium, will cause you symptoms. That's why we keep getting more and more names of more and more diseases because, oh, this muscle is affected. There's another disease. But I really maintain after when did I graduate medicine? I started my practice in 1979. That's 46 years ago. That's time. So I've been observing how we knew at a certain point back in the early days of nutrients we were using food-based nutrients. And we were t w I think the food was healthier back then. It wasn't overly processed, I don't think. My mom was, for the most part, a stay-at-home mom, so we had cooked meals even though we succumbed to the margarine
Mhm.
lie
Oh,
where
yeah.
we were told butter is bad, so we had to,
Yep.
it
Oh,
was
yeah.
we have had so many incredible, food, um, dangers, you know,
Food lies come through. Food lies, food propaganda.
propaganda.
Yeah.
So, back in the day when the nutrients were food-based and perhaps organic, I think we did well, but then the pharmaceutical companies got involved, and they said, "Oh, we can make a similar chemical structure with coal tar. Let's make synthetics." So most of the high dose vitamins you see are synthetics. All of the minerals are mineral compounds. They may say, "Oh, we've chelated this," but that just adds another thing onto the compound that
Yep.
body has to digest.
And that's energy. That's the
Yeah,
energy that the body has to
yeah.
process.
I mean,
Yeah.
I've seen studies where they say, "Well, the chelation doesn't really help absorption." So it
Mm.
became a marketing ploy to talk about these things. But I think from my own condition of magnesium deficiency, I finally had to work to find a non-laxative magnesium. And then with that technology, making a stabilized ion of all the minerals. I've got a multiple mineral, I've got silver, I've got zinc and copper and potassium. So all those minerals are the building blocks of all our cells. I can have people take my magnesium. It's a liquid. They just put a liquid in water. I tell people to put sea salt in their water as well, and maybe some lemon juice or something for taste. And after a couple of months of just taking a nearly 100% absorbed magnesium, people's immune systems wake up. They're sleeping better. They don't have palpitations. They have energy during the day and good sleep at night. That's all the body's craving.
Yeah. And
When,
you give your body rest, and it's amazing what it can do.
when you look at how they're trying to define things now, what's making people sick? They are down to the mitochondria level. I'll listen to these podcasts, the 10 things you can do for your mitochondria. What is it? Good sleep, exercise, stress, develop a social network.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Blue zones.
just the basic things. They've never gotten beyond that. And I
Yeah.
what what I've been able to do, again, because of my own health problems, is create this type of mineralization that
Mm-hmm.
gives people what maybe we used to get 100 years ago off the land. And then with the vitamins, the bees have to be methylated and based. This, I work with a food-based one, but also ascorbic acid, because you can't deny all the incredible doctors working with ascorbic acid, intravenous ascorbic acid. They they can raise someone from the dead
It's
with
a miracle.
ascorbic
Yeah.
acid. And
Yeah.
what that is, Sandy, is it's hardly a joke, but I say in the Garden of Eden, when Eve ate that apple, God punished her and said, "We're going to take away your ability to make vitamin C because you can go and eat all the apples you want, dear. You don't have the enzymes anymore to make your ascorbic acid vitamin C because humans cannot make their vitamin C."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what did Linus Pauling say? He says we probably need 8 or 10 grams,
Yeah.
8,000 to 10,000 milligrams of vitamin C a
Yeah.
day, which
Yeah.
is comparable to the mammals that make their own vitamin C. I mean, how
Wow.
did that happen to us?
Yeah. Wow. That's
Mhm.
amazing. I wanted to circle back. There's a few things you said along that way. I wanted to go back to Candida, and I wanted to ask, expand a little bit more on it, because or Candida, sorry, yeast overgrowth, for the population that's thinking Candida is sort of one of those fungal species that causes that yeast overgrowth.
Yep.
And I wanted to kind of dig a little bit deeper, because I know in my practice, as I'm doing the biofilm disruption, I'm doing the magnesium support, and I'm trying to clear Candida from its root. I know one of the big pieces that's often missed, and today, probably more of an impact today than was in the 90s, is that EMF component, the electromagnetic field component,
Yeah.
and radioactive species and our exposure, like where we get radioactive elements in our water and things like that. We absorb that, the body protects it. There's a great study I just saw. It keeps coming across my feed, but I read it, and I guess that's why my feed's populating it. But there in Chernobyl, where they, we dropped the A-bomb and everything, there's tons of fungal species that are just absorbing the radiation, which was, Chernobyl was supposed to be not something that you could go back to and habitate safely, or even walk through safely. And now they're measuring that the radioactive concentrations coming down because of these fungal species. So there's some digging and questioning to do. I love that you mentioned, of course, the things that are ubiquitous, like the birth control pills. How many of us have been on birth control pills? The antibiotics, how many times have you taken a dose of antibiotics? One of my questions I ask everyone. Do you live on a golf course?
Mm-hmm.
Those type of things, because you're getting kind of an antibiotic from the pesticides every day that you're exposed. So I wanted to kind of dig a little bit more and see what other components of yeast, what are the people at risk there, and kind of what does that yeast do, that yeast overgrowth do in our body?
Right. So the EMFs, what they do is they open up the calcium ion channels. If you have enough magnesium, it protects you against EMF. Seriously. There's research on that. So
Mm.
again, people, they need more than their, 350, 400 milligrams of magnesium. In my case, I was taking 1,200 milligrams to get rid of my heart palpitations. At a certain point, it did have the laxative effect, and I said, okay, I'm saturated. So now I'm only taking 450, max 600 milligrams a day. Everybody needs magnesium if it's going to help keep your channels closed and not allow EMF interruption. Fungus has very positive aspects. Intestines, it breaks down food that has been incompletely digested. So it feeds off that food but gets rid of it. Think of mold and mildew and all that in the forests.
Oh yeah.
If
Mm-hmm.
the trees fall down, if they didn't get eaten up by mold and mildew, we would be buried in debris. So fungus is necessary. Third part of fungus being necessary in the German New Medicine world, which is discussing the conflict basis of disease. They say that they see fungal species around cancer and tumors as the fungus is trying to chew up the tumor.
Wow.
Say
What?
be positive. And
Yeah.
we'll say, oh no, we got to treat the fungus. So when you think of what fungus is meant to do, chew up the trees and debris, chew up stuff in our gut, why
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't it go to these abnormal tumors and try to chew them up? We have to think about along those lines. If
It's
people
the
want,
terrain theory, people. That's what we're talking about here.
but what I'm talking about with yeast overgrowth, and it's usually mostly Candida albicans.
Mm.
It's in the large intestine. You take antibiotics, you kill off the good and bad bacteria, and you leave space for yeast to grow. You
Yep.
put some sugar in, and you've got your stress and cortisol feeding
Mm-hmm.
it, and the yeast will change from a a cute little budding stage to this tissue invasive mycelial stage and crawl up into the small intestine. And in the small intestine, it starts poking holes because it's this mycelia like a thread.
Mm.
Poke holes in the lining of the small intestine, and that's your leaky gut. And yeast, in its life cycle, it's producing up to 78 different toxins. Some
Whoa.
are alcohols,
Yes.
acetaldehyde,
Bad breath.
yeah, something called, I think, zymosin, or
Yeah.
it's something that looks like psoriasis. It's the brain fog. It's the cross reaction with liver and with thyroid. Thyroid really gets knocked out with yeast overgrowth. So yeast is huge. It's like
Mm-hmm.
when
And yeast is also bioidentical to estrogen. And so it also adds to that PCOS picture. So if you are a person who's been on, say, birth control pills and you've always kind of struggled, even as a teenager, with some hormone imbalance, then you go on a birth control pill to help you out and feed that already existing overgrowth of candida, and then you try to get off of birth control pills and become fertile. A lot of this picture includes that piece of the candida acting on estrogen receptors because it looks bioidentical
yeah,
to estrogen
the cross
and makes you gain weight. All it does.
And what you're describing is like the autoimmune diseases that seem to be escalating, where the body sees this yeast toxin and estrogen is nearby, and the antibodies start attacking the ovaries, and while they're trying to get rid of this yeast toxin. So a lot of damage around the periphery.
Yeah. Yeah.
And with like I said, with the thyroid, the cross reactivity there, it's been proven. I mean, and with estrogen, one of the things that comes to mind is when you're taking an estrogen birth control pill, or at times of high estrogen, your magnesium is depleted as the body is trying to use the magnesium to deal with this estrogen. So it's your magnesium. So
again, magnesium has a component to play there to help bring
Yeah.
us back into balance as we're trying to bring stability down on the candida overgrowth and it's amazing. It all comes back down to magnesium. No wonder you had a whole book on just magnesium.
Well, and this is my latest book. I think it's probably backwards, but
No, it is good.
by the time I
just want to read it just for the podcasters not watching us here live on the video, but it says Magnesium, the Missing Link to Total Health, the revised by
Right.
Carolyn Dean, MD, ND.
So by the time I wrote the second or third edition of The Magnesium Miracle, the first book that was out, I wrote in 1999, it was 600 pages. So
Oh, wow.
that was just too much. I mean,
Yeah.
can't stand to read anything more than 30 seconds. But the book, big print, it's like 200 pages with, 100 pages of references. But in
Yeah.
it, I list the magnesium deficiency health conditions. So what's happening?
That's amazing.
Yeah, people will, and I've got 68 of them.
Wow.
What will happen is people will get acid reflux and be told, well, take this drug, and it could be magnesium deficiency.
It accelerates it too, because then we are taking the acid blockers that block our absorption of the minerals. And
Right.
See, this is why.
That's right. That's right, Sandy. There's a black box warning on acid blockers that it creates magnesium deficiency.
Did anybody know that? There's a black box warning. This
fatigue, Alzheimer's, angina, anxiety.
Yeah.
Arthritis, asthma, atherosclerosis, atrial fibrillation.
Wow.
And that's just the A's.
That's just the A's. Yeah. Magnesium is definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's I think it's the missing link.
Yes, I think you do. That's the title of your book. I think it's aptly titled. I'm glad you made it consumable for the average, for the regular population to read. I can't say I'm not guilty of the same, where today's world just makes you if you aren't ADD, it makes you ADD. You can only read for so long because you got other things coming. Good Lord, I put books on my phone to read because it's always with me. And when I have the time to read, I'm not going to have my book in my purse. I'll have it on my phone. But then the text message comes through while I'm trying to read my book. And it's just like, yeah, I know. See, that's why we need more magnesium.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, actually, while I'm sitting here, I'm drinking my minerals.
Exactly.
I put all my minerals in with water and ice, sea salt. But also, they've got this interesting sodas out now, stevia sodas. One called Zevia, Zevia. Put a little bit of that in, and it's just a nice, refreshing drink.
Yeah, it's
All these
nothing.
really strong tasting minerals, you need,
Right.
a little bit of a taste enhancer.
Exactly. I thought one thing that you said too really helped me. It made me think of some things that, when I'm working with people, they're usually pretty advanced and pretty debilitated and really struggling with their health because they've been bounced around.
Yeah.
And their protocols the supplement protocols they've been given sometimes have made things worse and worsen the situation. One thing that you did kind of say earlier was, while we work on the immune system and this, that, and we're giving you the minerals, that's a really important piece is, that, we're not trying to band-aid everything with magnesium. If you're just constantly having to take 1,200 milligrams of magnesium while we're not addressing the root cause issues, then you're never going to you're going to take 1,200 milligrams of magnesium forever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's acting similar the way we do in medicine with pharmaceuticals. We're band-aiding without addressing the problem. And so that's not the goal either. We do want to give you the minerals you need because you won't be able to recover if you don't have the substrate, the foundational things that the cells need. And so, for any of my clients listening out there who go, oh my goodness, my protocol, I'm like, yes, you need the B's, the C's, the magnesiums, and you need probably several magnesiums here right now and quite a large dose. And yes, you also need to do this to and get the SIBO under control. Right. And so, if you're fretting your protocols, there's this reason why they look like that.
Think of how we used to talk about magnesium. Well, when you get the laxative effect, you're probably saturated.
Mm-hmm. Same thing with vitamin C, by the way.
Same with vitamin C, but what I tell people is whatever magnesium you're using, take it throughout the day. If it's a powder, put it in water, sip it through the day. Because if you load up, the cells will just get oversaturated, and then the magnesium goes out in your urine or out in your bowels and creates a laxative.
Creates the expensive urine that all my medical colleagues will say, oh, vitamins just create expensive urine. I'm like, well, if you take them the wrong way, that's true. Another thing you made me think of when you mentioned the silver, I was I was in the hospital during the time of the last large pandemic, the pandemic when it was new. And we were, here I am, anesthesia. We're the airway people, so we are intubating patients. We are the direct exposure right there. If we were believing was going on with COVID was airborne, there was a lot of fear around the hospital, and we were wearing these giant masks, like these huge suits with air pumped in, and it looked like a spacesuit, like ET. While we're trying to intubate patients and talk about losing the human touch. Well, the point I'm making is, in our community chat with my other colleagues, I mentioned, the main thing I would do right now, because this was new, we didn't know anything, right? So I'd get some silver and I'd be spraying your nose with some silver, every day while you're after work. And I literally got laughed out of the room. People were like, You're so silly. Do you not understand this is a virulent disease, and that is not going to do the trick?
I mean, you just have to say to them, we still use silver for horrible burns because it's the best antibiotic.
It is.
Silver
It
is
is. I just,
useful.
the cognitive dissonance was pretty impressive, you know. But anyway, I have really enjoyed this conversation. I don't mean to end it on my note there, but I really enjoyed everything you brought to the table with the magnesium. You've made so many connections, even for myself, and I hope the audience has really enjoyed making the connections with me. And there's just more I could ask you about, but we're heading on the hour mark here, and this is very dense information. So we're gonna bring you back, I think, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
But any last thoughts you want to leave with the audience? And definitely let us know where we can send them to find you.
Right. Well, you mentioned about social interaction. I think that is so important.
Yep.
Here in Maui, I just kept walking on the beach, and I wore a porous mask when I went into stores, and I was only caught once at Costco, but we lost social interaction. And now what I try to do, I volunteer at my farm store, my farmer's market. I take every opportunity to hug people. Really, I get close to people. We
The
need
human touch.
interaction. And
We do.
I don't know if you read about Candace Pert's work back in the day. She discovered the opioid receptors, but she was looking for was like GABA, dopamine, serotonin receptors.
Mew.
Discovered these endogenous neurotransmitter receptor sites. And she said they're not just in the brain, they're all over the body. And they are triggered by our emotions as much as anything else. So if we smile, if we have joy, we feel the energy through us, we are opening our receptor sites and releasing our own dopamine, our own serotonin.
Not the truth.
We can do that. We can, as she said, or someone said about her, we can build our own bliss.
Wow, that's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah, so
that's a great way to end. We're gonna leave our audience with the challenge to build their own bliss through human interaction. Don't be isolated. You're not isolated if you're here and you're listening to me, because she's sending the love. Exactly. And the hearts just came across the screen. I don't know how you did that, but that was very cool.
I know. I love it.
Oh, let me try. I want to try. Let me see. Does it do it? Mine doesn't do it. How'd you do that?
I know. Somehow my computer is
magic computer.
But thank you so much, Sandy. Thank you for the work you do. It's very important. I appreciate you.
Well, I'm just standing on the shoulders of the people that went before me, like you. So I appreciate the foundation that you've laid, and I've been encouraged by this conversation. I look forward to having you back.
And my sites are, my educational site is drcarolyndean.com. My store site is rnareset.com. My charitable site is parageniusfoundation.com.
Oh, wow.
And I'm everywhere, YouTube, whatever, just, type in my name and it'll come up.
Yes, and all that information, as always, will be in the show notes, so you don't have to go digging. If you're driving in the car listening to us, you can go back and find all that information. Just click on the links and you'll get to her.
Okay,
all right, Carolyn.
Mahalo.
Thank you so much. Mahalo.